I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us. And for those of you who watch us, you know that during this hour of the program, we spend a lot of time focusing on stories that have not been solved. Sometimes there's hope, sometimes there isn't hope, sometimes there is someone who is missing, and sometimes there's a killer on the loose. And tonight we're going to talk about one of those stories. It's the story of Serenity McKinney. Take a look at her picture, and there she is, little girl, 4 years old, goes missing sometime around Christmas of 2020. But like way too many of these little girls that go missing, no one reports her missing. No one reports her missing. Until finally, some family member realizes, wait a minute, there's a little girl that's gone, and makes the call. This time the call was made in January of this year. And then it started the investigation. And now we've got a conclusion, unfortunately. It's tragic. Her body was found. She was not found alive, but her body was found. And now there are charges for murder. 2 defendants. Take a look. One of them, her own mother, Catherine, and her boyfriend, Dakota Hill, charged with murder and abuse of a corpse. WDRB has been doing incredible work in covering this story. Reporter Christy Batista, reporter and anchor, has the latest for us tonight.
It's an outcome no officer wanted.
Just absolutely heart-wrenching. It's tough.
4-year-old Serenity McKinney was found dead in a wooded area near the Jefferson-Bullitt County line.
Anytime children are involved in a case, for a parent especially, it is very difficult. The emotional toll that police officers, people just don't understand the emotional toll the investigators play on all levels of law enforcement that have to deal with children, and especially in circumstances like this.
This all started earlier this month when Serenity's grandparents in Shelby County reported her missing after not seeing her since Christmas of 2020. Police arrested the girl's mother, Catherine McKinney, and her mother's boyfriend, Dakota Hill, in Kansas last week and charged them with custodial interference.
Unfortunately, these are bad situations. You have a missing child, but the public was amazing. You know, they all wanted to be able to at least bring some closure to this.
Those tips helped a dozen law enforcement agencies find the little girl's body on Friday.
I just want to say that, I mean, this was the ultimate example of partnership, you know, sharing all of our resources. Obviously, it's tragic, and we hoped it turned out better, but everybody gave their 110%. And one way or another, we wanted to find out what happened to Serenity.
Charges against Hill and her mother have been upgraded to murder and abuse of a corpse.
We say it often here, there's always someone out there knows something in all these stories and all these cases. And in this case, those tips led to the recovery. Let's bring in our guest joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, former special agent in charge from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Trebor Randall. In Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen. And in Louisville, Kentucky, local anchor and reporter with WDRB, Christy Batista, is with us. Christy, I want to start with you. Give us some ideas. It seems like it was some tip that they received that led them to this area, but can you describe where Serenity was found, where she went missing, and any sort of connection to the 2 who have been charged, her mom and the boyfriend?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, she was found in a wooded area. I mentioned in that story near the Bullitt Jefferson County line. Louisville, Kentucky is in Jefferson County, and Bullitt County is about 20 miles south. She was last seen in Shelby County, which is about 30 miles east of Louisville. So all of these jurisdictions were working together. It ended up being, you know, federal agents were involved as well. So they really credited all of that information that they got, the community supports. They had a lot of people, boots on the ground, searches were happening. But, you know, we mentioned that it was December of 2020, more than a year ago. So they said they had to work through a lot of things before they could even get to some sort of conclusion, just because of the fact that so much time had passed since anyone saw her last.
Jason Jensen, you know, we're here night after night. You're helping us so much. Trebor is here all the time as well. Tips help. People, there are people out there who know something, Jason, and here those tips led, and to me, this is a needle in a haystack you're talking about, a wooded area in 50 miles away, 20 miles away, 30 miles away. This is not easy to track without the help of the public.
Oh, exactly, especially since we're dealing with a little body. It's one thing to even go looking for a vehicle, which is big and hard to conceal, but a body in a wooded area is very hard to find. So it's very tragic that there's an outcome like this, but clearly with all the tips and the technology that they're alluding to, it was, unfortunately a bad outcome, but at least an outcome, because oftentimes these things go cold for years and years without any resolution.
Trebor, walk us through the process here that law enforcement goes through when you've got, stations like WDRB doing a great job of getting the word out, and you start getting these calls and you start getting these tips and you've got to go through them. How do you figure out which ones to follow, and how do you ferret through all this new information that you get?
Well, Benny, it's a very complex process, but organized by various different technologies that we use. Here in Georgia, we use what we call a leads tracker, where every lead, every tip that comes in by way of phone call, email, tip line is put into a computerized system, and then those leads are then dispatched out to different law enforcement officers and different teams, if you will, to make sure that every single lead is followed up on. And I must say, obviously, our hearts go out to this baby's family, but those law enforcement officers as well that finally discovered her body. If you've never recovered the body of a small child that's been discarded somewhere like trash, then you certainly cannot understand. And my heart goes out to them, as the sheriff mentioned as well. But it is really an organized process, should be, when you put those leads into an electronic system, and then you're able to then assign those to make sure every single lead is followed. And in this case, that's exactly what they did, and it led them to this unfortunate discovery.
Christy, what can you tell us about the life that Serenity was living? What her life was like? I can't imagine that you're gone for more than a year and law enforcement isn't notified. So it had to be a terrible, terrible situation that she was in.
Right, and that's exactly what everyone has been asking, because it took more than a year for somebody to call the police. They said that they spoke with her over the phone about 8 months prior to them filing that missing persons report, but that's exactly what everybody in the community has been wondering. Why did it take so long for them to notify law enforcement? And there are still a lot of questions that are being answered at this point, as far as whether the mom, was telling people that she was okay and she was with her. At first, she wasn't cooperating with police. When they first talked to her, they asked her to, show proof that Serenity was with her, and she wouldn't do that. So there are still a lot of things that are coming out now, and now that official murder charge has been filed, I think we're going to be learning a lot more in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Trebor, unfortunately, I think there are way too many children that are in this situation, but for folks who are watching at home, when there's a young child in the family, that young child usually is the center of attention, whether it's obviously mom and dad, mom or dad, whoever's, at home, plus the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the grandparents. Everybody wants to see and spend time with, go to birthday parties, FaceTime with whoever that little child is in the family. That's why I think a lot of people are surprised and shocked that there are children. And again, we've been covering too many stories like this where we have these little children, 3 years old, 7 years old, 4 years old, that all of a sudden everyone loses track of, and no one's wondering where the child is.
Huge red flag, Vinny, huge red flag. We're talking about a 4-year-old, a little girl. So you're exactly right. They're still in the category of those beautiful 2- and 3-year-old toddlers that everybody wants to see. You see her photos. This was a beautiful child. Huge red flag for neighbors, family members, friends, when you all of a sudden no longer see this child be outside playing in the front yard, whether you see them leave the house with or without the child. Again, you've heard me say time and time again that these are systematic failures where not only did individuals who probably saw something and didn't say something, we always use that related to children, not just, terrorism. If you see something that's off, you are responsible for saying something. Working these cases year after year after year, I always find that there's some type of common denominator when we do these collateral contacts, whether it be neighbors, friends, daycare. Someone is going to mention something more than once that, they noticed that the child was withdrawn, or they noticed that the child may have had some unusual marks or bruises, and then they didn't see the child anymore. Maybe they were keeping the child in to hide things. That is always a red flag, and you always want to make sure someone is doing a welfare check on that child. I would not be surprised in this case, as with many cases that end like this, that there wasn't some type of maltreatment type of complaint in the past against these parents or the mother and the boyfriend.
Christy, have we heard anything? I know it's early and they may not have released it yet. Any indication of the evidence that they may have gathered here that led them to very quickly charge the mother and the boyfriend with murder?
They were very tight-lipped about that information. I spoke with state troopers over the weekend, and they just said, we can't release that information yet. We have to remember that they are still investigating this, and they do still have to, go through with this investigation and officially file these charges, these murder charges. So there's a whole case that they're building. So of course, there's a lot of stuff that they still can't tell us. I did talk to the coroner a little bit ago, just a few hours ago, actually. And he said he is expecting to release more information, hopefully an official cause of death, unfortunately, tomorrow. So we are still working on that. We are still getting information from officials, but yeah, it's still very early on. So a lot of stuff is still tight-lipped here.
Absolutely. Jason Jensen, what type of evidence do you suspect they might be able to get in this case, particularly from the where they recovered little Serenity?
Well, given the fact that, such a long time has passed, I would expect, that the decomposition is complete. So we're talking to fully skeletonized remains. So if there's blunt force trauma, like a head injury or something, that would be evident to a coroner. But short of that, if there was something else, asphyxiation or something, it would be less likely to be detectable at this point.
Trebor, your thoughts about gathering some of the evidence here to figure out what exactly happened? You've got this long timeline. It's not exactly clear when she was murdered. How difficult do you think it will be to make that determination?
Again, there are challenges, as Jason mentioned, because it has been such a long time. But, we've been lucky in the past when we have had to, unfortunately, recover children from shallow graves. Occasionally, we're able to determine that there were fractures there, and that would certainly be an indication possibly of abuse. Fractures of the ribs, certain type of fractures of the legs and the arms that we know are not accidental. And that would certainly be more evidence to understand why they went and discarded this child's body if she had been beaten and if she died at home. And of course, they were going to try to conceal that death. So hopefully they're able to come up with something that's going to make sure they put these folks responsible away for a very long time.
Christy, how about the community? How has the community responded to this, and family members who aren't charged with the murder? Any reaction, response from them?
You know, it was, as we were saying earlier, that when you see a 4-year-old, I mean, everyone's heart breaks. You mentioned it, you know, it's the birthday parties. You have your nieces and nephews. There's young ones in nearly everyone's family. So I think this one, of course, really hit close to home for a lot of people. And they really wanted to get justice for the family members who reported her missing in the first place. Her grandparents, you know, her grandparents were the ones who called 911 and said, something's not right here. They held prayer vigils, and they had, you know, the power of technology these days, right? They had social media groups, things posted, circulating on social media, but they also were doing their own searches in the area. Just any way we can help, you know, that's what everybody kept saying. Any way we can help. You know, early on, they didn't know anything. We didn't know if she was possibly in Kansas, you know. So people were coming out in droves saying, hey, we're going to look here, and if we find something, great. If we don't, at least we tried. And they are also holding a prayer vigil, again, another one, this coming Sunday in Shelby County, where her grandparents are. And they just want to pray for that family and let them know that the community is still supporting them even after the heartbreaking outcome.
Absolutely. Christy Batista, WDRB anchor and reporter in Louisville, thank you so much for all your help tonight and the great work you did and the great work in getting the word out, because it was those tips that led to finding little Serenity. Trebor Randall, Jason Jensen staying with us. When we come back, we'll open up tonight's Unsolved Case File.